Did you know your overspending has almost nothing to do with willpower and everything to do with how fake your money currently feels? Picture this. It's a random Tuesday night, around 8:15. You're exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that settles into your shoulders after 9 hours of back-to-back meetings, endless emails, and a commute that drained whatever little energy you had left in the tank. You're slumped on the couch. The television is murmuring some show in the background that you aren't actually watching, and your thumb is mindlessly swiping across your phone screen. You open a food delivery app. You tell yourself you're just going to look, just to see what's open, because the idea of standing in the kitchen, chopping an onion, and waiting for water to boil feels like climbing a physical mountain. The refrigerator is technically full of groceries you bought on Sunday, but the mental labor of turning those raw ingredients into a meal is simply completely overwhelming right now. You scroll past the healthy options you promised yourself you'd eat this week. Your eyes lock onto a picture of a perfectly stacked burger, glistening with melted cheese, right next to a pile of golden, perfectly salted fries. The craving hits instantly. Your thumb taps the screen. Add to cart. You decide you might as well get a drink, too, maybe something sweet to take the edge off the day. Add to cart. The app suggests an extra side of sauce for 50 cents, and maybe a small dessert because you survived a brutal Tuesday. Add to cart. The total at the bottom of the screen is creeping up to $30, then $40, then $45. But it's just numbers glowing on a bright screen. It doesn't feel like anything real. It's just digital data floating in the ether, disconnected from the hours you spent sitting at your desk today. You hit checkout. The screen shifts, and a tiny prompt appears at the bottom. It doesn't ask for your credit card. It doesn't ask you to get up, walk to your wallet, pull out physical bills, and count them one by one onto a counter. It doesn't even ask you to type in a sequence of 16 numbers and an expiration date. Instead, the screen simply waits. You double-click the physical button on the side of your phone. A tiny little square pops up. It scans your face. A small circle spins for a fraction of a second, and then a satisfying little blue check mark appears, accompanied by a soft, pleasant chime. Done. Order confirmed. Your food will be arriving in 35 to 45 minutes. In the span of about 10 seconds, you've just spent $45 on a single, mediocre Tuesday night dinner. But here's the absolutely crazy part. You didn't feel a single thing. There was no hesitation, no sinking feeling in your stomach, no moment of pause to calculate how many hours of your life you had to work today just to earn that $45 after taxes. The transaction was so terrifyingly smooth, so utterly devoid of physical friction that your brain didn't even register it as a loss of resources. Your bank account is lighter, your net worth has decreased, but your physical body felt zero pain. If I had asked you to hand me two $20 bills and a $5, and then hand over that physical cash from your leather wallet, you'd have paused. You'd have looked at that stack of green paper, physically felt the thickness of it in your hands, and probably asked yourself if a burger was really worth surrendering that much tangible wealth. You might have even put the money back and walked into the kitchen to make a sandwich. But because it was just a double click and a facial scan, the money didn't feel real at all. It felt like points in a video game. It felt like magic. And this exact scenario isn't an accident. It's a highly engineered, multi-billion-dollar illusion, designed by the smartest people on Earth to bypass your logical brain entirely. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. We have all been sitting on that exact same couch, staring at that exact same screen, feeling that exact same mixture of exhaustion and surrender. You work hard for your paycheck. You put in the hours, you deal with the stress, and you try your best to be responsible. Yet, somehow, week after week, you look at your bank balance and wonder where it all went. The numbers just do not add up to the effort you are putting into your job. It is incredibly exhausting to feel like you are always one step behind your own spending. You try to set budgets. You download the tracking apps. You promise yourself on Sunday night that this week will be different, that you will cook every meal and avoid the convenience traps. But then reality hits. Life gets overwhelming, the decision fatigue sets in, and the easiest path forward is just a double click away. It is so easy to blame yourself when this happens. You tell yourself you just need more discipline. You label yourself as bad with money or weak-willed. But your lack of willpower is not the real issue here. You are fighting a war that you do not even realize you are fighting, against an opponent that never sleeps. The system is quite literally stacked against you, and it has been carefully designed to operate in the background of your life without you ever noticing. The modern financial landscape is not built to help you save. It is built to optimize consumption. Every app on your phone, every checkout page on a website, and every targeted advertisement is part of an incredibly sophisticated infrastructure. The sole purpose of this infrastructure is to remove the physical and emotional barriers between you and your money. They call it convenience, but what it really is a calculated extraction of your wealth. Behind every digital storefront, there are massive operations analyzing the hidden math of your behavior. People are staring at endless spreadsheets, tracking the invisible data points of every microsecond of hesitation you show during checkout. They know exactly how many people abandon their carts if they have to type in a 16-digit credit card number. So, they eliminate that step entirely. They engineer the payment process to be so seamless, so utterly invisible, that you do not have time to second-guess your choices. This is the reality of frictionless payments. It sounds like a helpful feature, a way to save you a few seconds at the register or on your couch. But frictionless really just means thoughtless. When you remove the friction from a transaction, you also remove the space required for rational thought. You are no longer making a purchasing decision. You are simply reacting to a stimulus, hitting the purchase button because the pathway has been cleared of every possible obstacle. We used to rely on natural defense mechanisms to protect our wealth. The simple act of carrying cash meant you could visibly see your resources dwindling as the week went on. If you went to the store and realized you forgot your wallet, you could not buy the item. That inconvenience was a built-in financial safety net. It forced you to pause, to go home, and to reconsider if you actually needed what you were about to buy. Now, those safety nets have been systematically dismantled. Your phone is your wallet. Your watch is your wallet. Your face is your password. You can buy a television while waiting at a red light. You can order a week of groceries while standing in an elevator. The barrier to entry for spending money has been lowered to absolute zero, and the emotional hangover is brutal. The next morning, when the exhaustion has faded and the logic returns, you look at the receipt in your email. The guilt washes over you. You realize that $45 could have gone toward your emergency fund, or an investment, or literally anything else that actually builds your future. You feel a sense of betrayal, not just by the app, but by yourself, because you allowed the invisible costs of the modern world to drain your accounts once again. This cycle is exactly why so many people feel broke, despite earning a completely reasonable salary. It is not that you are not making enough money to survive. It is that your money is leaking out through 1,000 tiny, frictionless holes in your financial bucket. You are losing wealth $10, $20, or $50 at a time, entirely through automated conveniences that you barely even remember using. This is not an accident of technology. It is a fundamental shift in how the economy operates. We have transitioned from an economy of physical goods and tangible money to an economy of digital impulses and invisible wealth transfer. And if we want to stop the bleeding, we have to look closely at the massive, undeniable scale of this problem. Let us look at the actual numbers for a moment, because the scale of this problem is staggering. According to recent data from the Federal Reserve, total household debt has shattered previous records, with credit card balances alone pushing well past the $1 trillion mark. This is not a coincidence, and it is not a sudden, collective failure of human self-control. It is the direct, mathematical result of an entire global economy shifting toward a frictionless payment model. To really understand how we got here, we have to look back at the history of how human beings exchange value. For thousands of years, money was deeply, undeniably physical. If you were running an ancient empire, like the Persians or the Macedonians, wealth was measured in literal tons of silver and gold. Moving money meant hauling heavy chests across continents to fund expansions or trade. Even on an individual level, buying something required you to hand over a physical piece of precious metal. The weight of the coin in your palm was a constant, physical reminder of the value you were trading away. Eventually, we moved to paper money. It was lighter and easier to carry, but it still possessed a physical reality. You could open your wallet and see exactly how many bills were left. When the wallet was empty, your purchasing power was zero. The friction was built into the physical object itself. You had to count it, hand it over, and wait for your change. Every single step of that process gave your brain a chance to realize that your resources were decreasing. Then came the 20th century and the invention of the credit card. This was the first massive psychological shift in consumer behavior. For the first time in human history, the act of acquiring an item was separated from the act of paying for it. You got the dopamine hit of taking the item home today, but the financial pain was delayed for 30 days until the bill arrived in the mail. Yet, even early credit cards had friction. You had to physically hand the plastic card to a cashier. They had to place it in a heavy, clunky machine and physically slide the carbon paper across it. You had to sign your name on a receipt. There was a waiting period, an interaction with another human being, and a physical record of the transaction handed back to you. You still had a moment to reflect on what you were doing. The modern tech and banking industries looked at that process and realized something terrifying. They realized that every second of friction was a second where a consumer might change their mind. Every time you had to sign a receipt or interact with a cashier, there was a risk you would abandon the purchase. So, they declared war on friction. They spent billions of dollars engineering systems to erase the space between wanting something and owning it. This is the societal flaw that nobody talks about when discussing the invisible costs of the modern American dream. The entire infrastructure of our commerce is funded by frictionless debt. We are constantly told to budget and save, but every screen we look at is mathematically optimized to make us spend. Studies on consumer behavior consistently show that people are willing to spend up to 30% more when using a contactless payment method compared to physical cash. The brain simply does not register the digital tap as a real loss of wealth. When you understand this macroeconomic picture, you have to let go of the shame you feel about your spending habits. You are essentially bringing human willpower to a fight against supercomputers. The engineers designing these checkout systems are paid millions of dollars a year to analyze heat maps, eye tracking data, and behavioral psychology. Their only goal is to figure out how to make you part with your money 1 millisecond faster than you did yesterday. They want your money to feel fake. Because if your money feels fake, you will spend it like it is fake. You will treat your hard-earned salary like unlimited credits in an arcade game. You will double-click for the delivery, tap your phone for the coffee, and swipe for the clothes, entirely disconnected from the hours of your life. You traded to earn those numbers on a screen. So, when you look at your checking account and feel that familiar wave of anxiety, remember that you are not weak. You are operating in a world that has weaponized convenience against your financial future. Recognizing this invisible war is the first step. But to actually win it, we have to look even deeper into the human brain to see exactly how this lack of friction short-circuits our biology. Here's what most people don't realize. The struggle you are facing with frictionless payments is not just a matter of convenience or modern habits. It is a biological phenomenon occurring deep inside the architecture of your brain. To truly understand why you overspend when you tap your phone, you have to understand a concept in behavioral economics known as the pain of paying. It is a very real, measurable neurological response, and it is the exact mechanism that tech companies have worked so incredibly hard to bypass. Let us look at how human biology is designed to protect our resources. Evolutionarily speaking, humans are wired for survival, which means we are naturally protective of our food, our shelter, and our energy. When we lose something valuable, our brain registers it as a threat. Neuroscientists have placed people inside functional MRI machines to see what happens in their brains when they make different types of purchases. The results are absolutely fascinating and explain almost everything about your current financial anxiety. When a person is asked to pay for an item using physical cash, a specific region of the brain called the insula lights up. This is the exact same region of the brain that activates when you smell rotten food, when you see something disgusting, or when you experience mild physical pain. Your brain literally interprets the act of handing over physical money as a painful, negative experience. That feeling is the pain of paying, and it is your built-in financial defense mechanism. Think about the sensory experience of cash. When you hand over a $100 bill, you feel the texture of the paper. You look at the number printed on it, you hand it to another person, watch it leave your possession, and then wait to receive a smaller amount of money back. Your brain receives dozens of sensory inputs during this process, all screaming the exact same message. That message is that your resources are being depleted, you are now poorer than you were 2 minutes ago, and you need to be careful. Now, we have to look at the other side of the neurological equation, which is dopamine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but it is actually the chemical of anticipation and desire. When you see that burger on the delivery app, or those shoes on sale, your brain releases a massive surge of dopamine. It makes you feel excited, motivated, and deeply eager to acquire the item. Your brain wants the reward, and it wants it right now. In a normal, physical transaction, a war takes place inside your head. The dopamine system is pressing the gas pedal, urging you to buy the item and get the reward. But the insula, anticipating the pain of handing over your cash, slams on the brakes. Your brain is forced into a rapid cost-benefit analysis. Is the dopamine reward of this hamburger truly worth the physical pain of losing $20? Often, the pain wins, and you walk away. Frictionless payments have completely destroyed this biological balance. When you double-click your phone or use a one-click checkout, the transaction happens in a fraction of a second. There is no counting, there is no physical handover, there is no waiting for change. Because the friction has been removed, the sensory inputs that normally trigger the insula are completely absent. The pain of paying is entirely neutralized. Because the pain center never activates, the brakes are never applied. The dopamine system gets to press the gas pedal all the way to the floor without any resistance. You get the massive neurochemical high of acquiring the new item, the food, or the subscription, but you experience absolutely zero negative neurological feedback. Your brain literally does not comprehend that you have lost anything of value. This is why swiping a piece of plastic or tapping a piece of glass feels so effortless. It is fundamentally unnatural to human biology. You are experiencing the joy of consumption while completely blindfolded to the reality of the cost. It is the financial equivalent of eating junk food that has been engineered to never trigger your stomach's fullness receptors. You just keep consuming until you are sick, or, in this case, broke, because the biological signal telling you to stop has been muted. The architects of these payment systems understand this neuroscience better than anyone. They know that if they can keep your insula quiet, you will spend significantly more money. They are not simply making your life more convenient. They are actively hacking your neurology to create a frictionless conduit directly from your bank account to their corporate revenue streams. Once you understand that your brain is being bypassed, the solution becomes incredibly clear. You cannot rely on willpower to fight a biological hack. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes as you get tired, stressed, or hungry. If you try to fight frictionless spending with pure discipline, you will lose every single time. Instead, you have to fight systems with systems. You have to intentionally design your environment to rebuild the very friction that the tech companies spent billions trying to destroy. You have to actively reintroduce the pain of paying into your digital life so your brain can wake up and start protecting your wealth again. And doing that requires a very specific, deliberate set of actions. Look, here is the truth. You cannot outsmart a system designed by thousands of engineers by simply trying harder to be disciplined. You cannot fight a multi-billion-dollar algorithmic infrastructure using nothing but your own tired willpower at the end of a long day. If you want to stop the invisible bleeding from your checking account, you have to fight fire with fire. You have to build your own system. I call this first phase of defense the friction protocol, and it is entirely based on reversing the damage that convenience has done to your brain. The friction protocol is about intentionally breaking the seamless connection between your digital devices and your actual wealth. The goal is not to stop spending money entirely. You still have to live, eat, and buy things. The goal is simply to build an artificial wall of inconvenience around your money. We want to force your brain to wake up, look around, and acknowledge what is happening before a transaction is finalized. We are going to manufacture the pain of paying out of thin air. The very first step of this protocol happens inside the settings menu of your phone. You have to go into your digital wallet. Whether that is Apple Pay, Google Pay, or whatever system you use, and you have to aggressively delete your primary credit cards and debit cards. You must sever the link that allows you to pay for things by simply double-clicking a button and staring at your screen. Your phone is no longer allowed to act as an open vault to your bank account. Now, when you actually sit down to do this, you are going to feel a massive wave of internal resistance. Your brain will immediately start generating excuses. It will tell you that deleting those cards is a terrible idea. It will say, what if there is an emergency? Or what if you leave your physical wallet at home? Or what if you look silly holding up the line at the coffee shop? That internal whining is just your dopamine system panicking because you are cutting off its primary supply line. Ignore it and hit delete. Once those cards are gone from your digital wallet, your daily routine is going to change. The next time you walk into a coffee shop or a convenience store, you will reach for your phone out of pure muscle memory. But the double click will not work. In that exact moment, you will be forced to physically reach into your pocket or your bag. You will have to pull out a physical leather wallet, extract a physical piece of plastic, and insert it into a machine. That physical movement is exactly what your insulin needs to wake up and recognize that a trade is occurring. But we have to take this protocol one step further, because the digital world is far more dangerous than the physical one. You must log into your most used online retailers, particularly Amazon and your preferred food delivery apps, and completely wipe out your saved payment profiles. You must turn off one-click purchasing everywhere it exists. You want to make sure that these websites forget who you are and, more importantly, forget how to access your money automatically. Think about what this does to that random Tuesday night scenario on your couch. You are exhausted, you want a burger, and you open the app. You add the food to the cart, but when you hit checkout, the screen does not just scan your face. It presents you with a blank set of fields asking for a card number. Because your wallet is sitting in your jacket pocket by the front door, you now have a physical barrier between you and that purchase. To buy that food, you have to physically stand up. You have to walk across the room, retrieve your wallet, walk back to the couch, and manually type in 16 individual digits. Then you have to type in the expiration date. Then you have to flip the card over and type in the 3-digit security code. It sounds incredibly annoying, and that is precisely the point. Every single number you type is a fraction of a second where your rational brain gets to intervene. As you type those numbers, the cost-benefit analysis finally kicks in. You start asking yourself if this cold, soggy delivery burger is really worth the effort of typing all this out. You ask yourself if you would rather just keep your $45 and eat a bowl of cereal. In many cases, the effort of typing the numbers will completely outweigh the craving. You will close the app, leave the food in the digital cart, and keep your money. In the e-commerce world, leaving an item behind is called cart abandonment, and companies consider it a massive failure. But for you, cart abandonment is a massive financial victory. It means the friction protocol worked. It means you successfully gave your brain the exact amount of time it needed to realize that the dopamine hit was not worth the financial cost. You are no longer acting on autopilot. You are finally making a conscious choice again. Even if you successfully delete every saved card on your devices, you are still going to face moments of weakness. There will be times when the craving for convenience is so incredibly strong that you will actually go get your wallet and type in all 16 digits. Your brain will eventually adapt to the new level of friction, which means we need a second layer of defense. I call this the time delay architecture, designed to completely break the cycle of impulse buying. The time delay architecture requires a strict personal rule that you must treat like an absolute law of physics. The rule is the 48-hour mandatory holding period for any purchase that is not an immediate life necessity. Groceries and gas are exempt, but everything else must pass through this temporal buffer. You are absolutely allowed to shop online, but you are absolutely forbidden from clicking checkout on the same day you put the item in the cart. Here is the psychological reasoning behind this delay. Your dopamine system operates on immediate gratification. It spikes the moment you see something you want, creating a profound sense of urgency. Marketers exploit this urgency by adding countdown timers to sales. But dopamine has a massive vulnerability. It has a very short half-life. If you can force a gap of time between the stimulus and the response, the chemical high will evaporate. When you implement this rule, you change the way you interact with digital storefronts. You still get the initial hit of excitement when you find a pair of shoes you love. You get to select your size and add it to your shopping cart. But then, you simply close the laptop or lock your phone. You walk away. You let the items sit in digital purgatory for exactly 2 full days. The magic happens while you are sleeping. Over the next 48 hours, you go to work, you deal with daily stresses, and you live your actual life. The shiny new object in your digital cart slowly loses its hypnotic power. By the time the holding period is over, your logical brain has taken the wheel back from your emotional impulses. When you finally return to that shopping cart on the 3rd day, the experience feels entirely different. You will look at a $70 shirt and wonder what on earth you were thinking. You will happily click the remove button, feeling a deep sense of relief. You have essentially tricked your brain into abandoning the purchase without ever feeling deprived. To make this architecture truly bulletproof, you must pair it with a mental framework I call the hour value conversion rule. Because payments are currently frictionless, you look at a price tag and only see abstract numbers. We need to convert those abstract numbers into the one currency your brain actually understands, which is your time and physical energy. Before you check out after your waiting period, you must calculate exactly how much money you make per hour after taxes. If you are on a salary, divide your take-home pay by the actual number of hours you dedicate to your job, including your commute. Let us say that number comes out to $20 an hour. That $20 represents 60 minutes of your life that you traded away forever. When you open your cart after 2 days, you are no longer allowed to look at the total dollar amount. If the cart total is $150, you divide that total by your hourly wage. You look at that cart and you see 7.5 hours. You see an entire, exhausting Tuesday at the office. Now, the question changes entirely. You are no longer asking if you want the shoes. You are asking yourself if you are willing to sit at your desk tomorrow for 8 straight hours and hand over every single penny you earn just to acquire them. You are asking if the dopamine hit is worth an entire day of your physical existence. Suddenly, those glowing pixels on your screen carry massive physical weight. You have successfully taken a frictionless digital transaction and anchored it to the hardest, most tangible reality of your life. You force the money to feel real again, and in doing so, you take back your power to protect it. The most dangerous part of frictionless spending is the illusion of insignificance. When you double-click your phone for a $6 coffee or a $15 lunch, it does not feel like you are making a life-altering financial decision. It feels like a rounding error. Your brain dismisses these microtransactions because, in isolation, they are completely harmless. No one has ever gone bankrupt from buying a single overpriced sandwich on a Tuesday afternoon. But the modern economy is not built on single transactions. It is built on sheer, unrelenting volume. To truly grasp what is happening to your wealth, you have to look past the isolated moments. You have to open a blank spreadsheet and decide to look exactly where all your money is going over a 12-month period. You have to sit down and obsess over the hidden financial math of the American dream, because the reality of these invisible costs is something the entire consumer industry desperately wants you to ignore. The math reveals a truth that is both terrifying and incredibly empowering. Let us construct a very conservative, incredibly common daily scenario of frictionless spending. Imagine you grab a coffee and a pastry on your way to work using a tap-to-pay terminal. That is $8. Later, you are too busy to meal prep, so you order a quick salad for lunch using a delivery app on your phone. That is $18 with fees and tip. On the way home, you stop for gas and grab a mindless snack at the counter with a quick swipe. That is another $4. In total, you just spent $30. $30 does not sound like an emergency. If you make a decent salary, $30 barely registers as a blip in your checking account. You probably will not even remember buying any of these things by tomorrow morning. They were effortless, thoughtless, and completely devoid of any physical friction. But let us take that $30 and stretch it across the reality of human behavior. If you spend that $30 on frictionless conveniences just 5 days a week, that equates to $150 a week. That is $600 a month, evaporating from your account. And over the course of a single year, that daily habit totals $7,200. Think about that number for a second. $7,200. That is not pre-tax income. That is post-tax take-home cash. Depending on your salary, you might have to earn $10,000 in gross income just to take home that $7,200. You are trading hundreds of hours of your actual life, sitting in traffic, dealing with difficult people, and enduring stress, just to fund a series of forgettable, frictionless microtransactions. But the tragedy of this hidden math goes much deeper than the money you spent. The real tragedy is the concept of opportunity cost. Every time you spend $1, you are not just losing that dollar. You are losing every single penny that dollar could have earned for you if you had put it to work in the market. The true cost of your frictionless spending is the future wealth you are permanently destroying. Imagine if you took that exact same $600 a month and, instead of letting it slip through your digital wallet, you automated it into a basic index fund tracking the broader market. Historically, the market returns an average of around 8% per year. If you invested that frictionless spending money every month for the next 10 years, you would not just have the $72,000 you saved. Through the mathematical miracle of compound interest, that account would grow to over $109,000 in a single decade. Over 20 years, it explodes to nearly $350,000. And if you project that out over a 30-year working career, those daily coffee and lunch taps compound into an absolutely staggering $890,000. You are literally tapping your phone and double-clicking away nearly $1 million of future wealth. That is the hidden financial math. That is the massive, invisible cost of home ownership, retirement, and freedom that gets buried under the guise of convenience. You are not just buying a burger on a Tuesday night. You are financing the tech companies with the wealth that is supposed to be building your own personal empire. When you see the math laid out in a blank spreadsheet like this, the entire landscape changes. You realize that gaining financial independence does not necessarily require a massive promotion or a winning lottery ticket. It simply requires you to stop bleeding out from 1,000 tiny, frictionless cuts. It requires you to reclaim the money that is already yours, but is currently being siphoned away by a system designed to keep you numb. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds mathematically correct, but creating all this friction just seems completely exhausting. You are probably looking at your phone right now, imagining the sheer annoyance of having to find your wallet every single time. You need to order an Uber or buy a book. It feels like taking a massive step backward into the Stone Age. You might even be worried about what happens in a genuine emergency, when you need to pay for something immediately and your card information is nowhere to be found on your device. Those are completely valid concerns. Your brain is throwing up these objections right now because it is deeply addicted to the dopamine loop of instant gratification. We have been conditioned for years to believe that inconvenience is the ultimate enemy of progress. The tech companies have spent billions of dollars marketing the idea that if an action takes more than 3 seconds, it is fundamentally broken and needs to be fixed. They have equated speed with success and friction with failure. But you have to ask yourself who actually benefits from that speed. When you save 45 seconds at the checkout screen, what do you actually do with that recovered time? You probably just spend it scrolling further down another app. The convenience does not actually give you your life back. It simply accelerates the rate at which your money leaves your possession and enters their corporate accounts. You are trading your financial security for the illusion of saving time. As for emergencies, you always have your physical wallet. The friction protocol does not mean you shred your credit cards or bury your cash in the backyard. It simply means returning to the exact same baseline of normal human commerce that existed 10 years ago. If your car breaks down, you can still hand a physical card to a mechanic. But 99% of the transactions you make on a daily basis are not emergencies. They are impulses disguised as urgent needs. It is completely true that implementing this time delay architecture and these friction protocols will feel annoying at first. You will feel a strong sense of irritation the first 3 or 4 times you have to abandon your spot on the couch to go retrieve your card. You might even feel a little bit angry at yourself for setting up these rules. But that irritation is exactly what we want. That irritation is the pain of paying coming back online. That annoyance is the sound of your biological defense mechanisms finally waking up from a decade-long coma. Within a week or two, a profound shift will occur. The annoyance will fade, and it will be replaced by a deep, quiet sense of power. You will start to realize that you are no longer at the mercy of algorithms designed to drain your bank account. You will experience the incredible peace of mind that comes from knowing that every dollar leaving your possession is doing so because you made a conscious, rational, physical decision to let it go. You are no longer bleeding out in the dark. But talking about this shift is very different from actually experiencing it. You cannot just listen to this concept, agree with the psychology, and then go back to double-clicking your way through the week. Knowledge without action is just entertainment, and the tech companies are perfectly happy to let you be entertained as long as your cards remain linked to their systems. We have to break the circuit, and we have to do it today. This brings me to your 24-hour challenge. I am not asking you to delete every single payment method from every single device and website you own by tomorrow morning. That is too much friction all at once, and you will likely just give up and revert to your old habits. We need to start with a surgical strike against the single biggest leak in your financial bucket. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I want you to identify the one app on your phone that tempts you the most. For most people, it is a food delivery service, or a massive online retailer, or a fast fashion clothing site. You know exactly which app it is. It is the one you open when you are tired, stressed, or bored. I want you to open that specific app, go into the account settings, navigate to the payment methods, and hit the delete button on your primary credit card. Just that one app. Wipe the card data completely. Turn off any setting that remembers your payment information. Force the app to forget who you are. The next time you feel the urge to buy something from that specific company, you are going to have to do the physical work. You are going to have to walk across the room, find your plastic, and type in those 16 digits. Give your brain the gift of that hesitation, and watch how quickly your financial reality begins to change. The goal of the friction protocol and the time delay architecture is not to punish yourself. It is not about living a miserable life of extreme deprivation or promising that you will never enjoy a meal delivered to your house again. It is simply about waking up. It is about ensuring that when you do finally decide to spend your money, you are actually making a conscious, deliberate choice. We started this journey by talking about that exhausted Tuesday night on the couch, staring blindly at a glowing screen. The real tragedy of that moment was never the $45 burger. The tragedy was the absolute lack of agency. The problem was the double click that completely robbed you of your right to consciously decide the value of your own hard-earned time. You must remember the hour value conversion rule we discussed earlier. Money is not just abstract data floating in a banking app, and it is not just paper sitting in your wallet. Money is literal, physical energy that you have already expended. It is the stress you endured at the office, the early mornings you woke up when you were tired, and the hours you spent away from the people you love. When you allow the world to make your spending frictionless, you are allowing them to take that stored energy without your full, rational consent. You are letting an algorithm dictate the terms of your life's labor. Reintroducing friction is how you take your power back from those systems. It is how you build a fortress around your energy and demand that the world respect the effort you put in. We have to completely rethink what wealth actually means. The modern dream has been twisted into a very dangerous narrative of endless, effortless consumption. We are constantly told that success looks like the ability to buy whatever we want, whenever we want it, with absolutely zero physical effort. But true wealth is not the ability to buy more things faster than everyone else. True wealth is simply freedom. It is the deep, lasting peace of mind that comes from knowing your checking account is not secretly bleeding out. It is having real options when your car breaks down, or when you realize you hate your job, or when you just want to take a month off to breathe. You cannot buy those life-altering options with frictionless debt. You can only buy them with intentional, conscious capital. Every single time you force yourself to get up from the couch, find your wallet, and type in those 16 digits, you are casting a powerful vote for your future self. You are looking the system in the eye and telling it that your time is far too valuable to be swiped away on a mindless whim. You are actively choosing your own financial independence over their corporate profit margins. This is a quiet, completely invisible rebellion. Nobody else will even know you are doing it. Your friends will still be mindlessly tapping their phones at the coffee shop, and your coworkers will still be ordering daily deliveries with a quick glance at their screens. But quietly, in the background of your life, your financial reality will begin to diverge from theirs in a massive, undeniably positive way. You will start seeing those invisible leaks slowly plug up. You will watch your bank balance stabilize at the end of the month instead of mysteriously vanishing. And eventually, you will look at your own compounding spreadsheet and realize that you have built a massive wall of security that no checkout algorithm can ever breach. All because you decided to step out of the illusion and make your money feel real again. I want you to think carefully about the friction you are going to reintroduce into your life today. Let me know down in the comments below, which specific app are you going to delete your credit card from tonight? And what is the very first thing you plan to do with the money you save by finally breaking the frictionless trap?